Finance Committee meeting to order. If we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, so budget reviews. Tewksbury School Committee, you are up.
All right. Well, thank you, Chairman Lavasser and members of the Finance Committee. I'm Brenda Terrio-Regan, Superintendent of Tewksbury Public Schools. Joining me tonight is our Business Manager, David Libby, and in our seats behind us are members of our School Committee Chair, Ms. Bridget Garabedian, Vice Chair, Kayla Biastroni-Smith, and School Committee Member, Christopher Moncada. With that, thank you for having us come to the annual meeting to illustrate our Tewksbury Public School budget. We're going to start with the why and what we believe as a school district. We always start with this because it's important to share. Our belief will reflect our collective vision of a learner to observe growth amongst our students and staff, not only towards academic, but also social, emotional, and health and wellness success. How is our theory of action, and that prioritizes that vision of a learner so that students will experience innovative, inclusive, equitable, and student-centered instruction at all of our school buildings. With that, I have an overview here of our, and I'm going to go through this impeccably with every detail of our district strategic plan. I am kidding. This is the summary. This is the summary and overview, because I think it's important that you show, that we show you that our school budget is rooted in our strategic plan and our priority goals and objectives. And again, this is an overview. You can find our entire district strategic plan, as always, on our school website and see the multiple actions under each of those objectives. But we always focus on, again, that district strategy and then set professional practice goals for all of our faculty and staff. And you can see it as a data-driven decision-making practice. And it's all geared towards strengthening our instructional supports for student learning. You can see there are more objectives there and many more actions if you dig deeper into our plan, because that is just really the core of everything we do. We have 2 district improvement goals. One, and you have most likely been hearing much about this, are improved school facilities. And then, as always, we're always seeking to improve communications for our district stakeholders. And I believe with that, Mr. Libby has shared with you some of the improved communications we're even trying to get out there to the public and making this budget process more transparent and understandable for our school stakeholders. So hopefully you had an opportunity to see those videos. There's 2 of 4 that have been shared with you. I think we're unveiling the 3rd, part 3 of the series Wednesday night. But again, all of those links, I didn't want to inundate you with multiple documents. They're all on the district website. So with that, I'm going to turn the wheel over to Mr. Libby, our business manager, where he will share with you the finer details in our school development, the process of the department budget, as well as our final recommendation.
Sure. So keep in mind, we sort of developed this as like a budget 101 course for our parents, residents, members. So I'm going to skip over a lot of the stuff that you folks already know, like how we develop a budget in the town and those processes and things like that. I think it's helpful for us to keep it in the presentation for people who don't already know this stuff, but so as not to bore you and take up time that you don't need to focus on.
Although you can watch the recording of both budget workshops that have already occurred at school committee meeting if you choose.
Right. So yeah, our budget consists of 4 parts: salary, operating, capital outlay, and we share fixed costs with the town. When we talk about the school budget, we generally focus on salary, operating, and capital outlay. These major areas here. We did include a little more focus on fixed costs this year because of our anticipated health insurance increase coming next year, rather large in comparison to previous years. So we're kind of did a dotted line around that. We'll spend a little bit of time focused on that. But generally, salary, operating, capital outlay is what we think of when we think of the budget. Our process is fluid. We are constantly watching the budget and reflecting the needs and the resources that are available to us at any moment in time. We've had changes since we presented the budget 30 days ago in our second budget presentation. So we're just always considering the budget and how it is impacted by things that happen in our buildings. This was the one that explains kind of how the budget works, and we present it to you folks present it at school meeting, and the actual funding gets approved at the town meeting in May. We included some student data here for you from last year, the 24-25 to the current year. We increased 40-ish students. We're going pretty flat next year, 3277 to 3280. We always anticipate a drop from grade 8 to grade 9. Kids going to Shawshene Tech, other private high schools. So we dropped, I believe it was 80 students, which is the anticipated number we generally lose between grades 8 and 9 going into next year. Mr. Lavasser asked us for some per pupil expenditures, which are available on the Department of Ed website. Rich, I'm not sure if this is what you were looking for or.
Exactly what I was.
Okay. Then they've only updated us, all districts through 2024 at this point, but these are the total per pupil expenditures for, this represents our in-district spending compared to our in-district student count. So what we focus on when we look at the budget every year, this doesn't change too much from year to year. A few things in personnel. We're working on transforming more contracted service to TPS employees in the area of special ed. We have a lot of educational support personnel, referred to frequently as aides, classroom aides, that are work for a contracted service. It was the agreement of the ESP union and the school district that we should try to get away from that practice. The schools see better results with their employee aides than some of the contracted aides, so we're looking to convert as many of those from contractors to employees over the course of the next few years, and we've begun that already with our school administration. And continuing to implement recommendations of our special education audit we had done, sort of strengthening all of our programs to see vertical alignment between schools and what we're referring to as Pathway C services for students at all of our schools, and Pathway C is?
Students with significant social, emotional, behavioral needs. They don't necessarily live in that pathway all day, but we need to provide those services so that we can support them in those needs throughout the school day.
In our operational budget, we're always looking for savings in transportation, utilities, tech, and trying to keep ahead of rising trends there. With technology, we're focused on communications, as was outlined in our district initiatives. We want to make sure we always provide inventory for our one-to-one device program, which is in existence from grades 7 through 12. And we want to maximize our use of our E-rate program.
Devices 5 through 12.
Oh, 5 through 12,
Yeah.
sorry.
And then in school, one-to-one devices for all other students.
As far as building improvements go, we've had to reduce what we traditionally carried in capital outlay over the past few years, just reducing it to what we need for tech and instructional costs in that area. We'll have a slide that we We'll talk about that in a moment. And a focus on safety and security, both internal and external audits. We've received back and are starting to implement some of those recommendations that are being born out of those reports. So our process, we start with salary. It's 70% of our budget. We're in the kind of the people business, so most of our money is spent on our employees. We start with our current payroll roster and we advance everybody the lanes and steps and longevity that they're entitled to per their collective bargaining agreements. The total change for us in our budget just to do that was $1.8 million this year. In grants and revolving, we fund a few positions out of that. Those different resources, the increases there was 78,000. So we want to make sure that's our kind of starting point of where we're going to be looking at for next year. Next step in our process is adjusting for retirements and resignations that we know about, and we had a few of those happen over the past 4 weeks, so we've tweaked our numbers a bit accordingly. We align any employees that we can pay from any other sources. We have revolving accounts where we take in money for different purposes, and if we can fund a position out of a grant or revolving account that's appropriate, we will do so. And then we examine all part-time, overtime, and sort of extra duty accounts and see how those run compared to our actuals, the budgets versus actuals, and we look for opportunities or shortfalls there. Review with building principals, department heads. This is something we do constantly throughout this process. I have this on pretty much every slide during this section of the presentation. Anything that we think is going to impact a school where we think we could save money, we need more money, we go to the building principals, sort of the boots on the ground people, and find out if it's going to impact them positively, negatively, or not at all. So our operating budget is 28% of our budget typically. So we adjust that for any known or anticipated increases. For next year, we have our transportation contracts are up to be bid. So we'll see what those come in at and adjust accordingly there. We added 5% across the board on utilities as those have been increased over the past few years. Health insurance, we're projecting a 13 to 15% increase we got from the Blue Cross Blue Shield folks. That's baked into our budget here. And tuition is a 3.04% increase for out-of-district tuition costs. That's been recommended to us per the Occupational Services Division. That increase could be higher in some cases. Schools are allowed to apply for a program reconstruction review if they feel they need a higher tuition increase in a given year. We get advance warning of those if they're happening to any of our schools that we send students to. We do have one school that's going into a program reconstruction cost next year. Those costs can increase instead of the standard increase anywhere from 10 to 20%. It's based on the presentation that the school makes the Occupational Services Division, and then DESE decides on that cost.
I just wanted to add in, and I know we talked about this last year, and I'm sure the year before, right after COVID, we saw every out-of-district school raise the tuition far and ahead of, I think OSD approved 14%. That's been really hard to rebound from, even when Dave gets to circuit breaker. 3% on a regular basis is high, but then when you partner in transportation and then those waivers, I think they call them, for higher tuition, as those tuitions are rising, think in terms also of residential placements. So when we're thinking about 3 to 14 or even 20% on 150,000, or $500,000, we're looking at a significant line item when we think about out of district. And these students need that, but when we talk about that, difficult to keep up with special ed costs, this is one of the areas that we're really working with our legislators to pay attention to, because the LEA, we'll have to take it out of the other operating or other expenses, and it's just impossible to keep up with. So I wanted to interject there a little bit in case you hadn't been paying attention a few years ago when we all hit that really huge increase that we're struggling to catch up to.
And again, anything in our operating accounts that may impact, we review with building principals, department heads. Next in our process, this is, we meet with our town manager. We establish what we think is going to be available in the town, and we share our initial needs. This is the poker game where we're holding our cards, he's holding his cards. No, it doesn't go like that at all. It's very cooperative, and he's been great to work with this year. So typically our budget, we get 60% of any new revenues over projected for the next year, plus our baseline budget for the year before. Where do we get that number from? It's typically what we spend. The school department expenses are typically around 60% of the budget. You can see in FY26 we were 60.52, 60.62, as opposed to the town side was generally around 40%. So that's why the new revenue split of 60-40 seems to be a fair way to do that. This year, the town manager adjusted projected revenues in state aid to try to cover all departments' requests, because the projections were initially pretty conservative. The final 27% worked out for the schools to be at 63.3%, and the town at 36.7% for next year initially. So then we look at other revenue sources, grants and revolving accounts. We have to be careful here and make sure it's an appropriate need or use, and it lines up with how we're going to spend the money. Is the revenue going to be recurring? Is the expense going to be recurring? We expect the expense to increase, decrease, be eliminated, and we make decisions that we try to use those grants and revenue sources as much as we can. Overall, when it all came together, we're looking at a 3.72% increase in salaries, operating, and capital outlay. When you factor in the fixed costs, it dropped down to a 3.44% increase that we're requesting. So salary, anything with the new Starburst here is something that's changed since the last meeting. We've had a few retirements come into our radar since the last meeting. So it slightly changes our salary figures. Typically, when we factor in the replacement costs, we're not exactly sure what it will cost us in salary, but we know we'll have some savings generally in things like longevity steps and things like that. So we're pretty comfortable typically with the savings across when we see a retiree or a resignation of a long-standing position. In our operating area, not much changed here. We had some tuition adjustments. Any tuition adjustments we see from this point forward, we'll fund through our circuit breaker revolving fund. Circuit breaker is a program that reimburses us for high-cost tuitions and transportations for students in the year. And that revolving account can be spent on eligible special ed expenses for those students in subsequent years. But the operating breakdown, transportation tuition is our highest category here, which sort of aligns with what we've been talking about with the out-of-district spending. And we always have a high cost in those areas for our students that require special programs. Capital outlay, just 0.41% of the school budget this year. We've typically used to carry 750 to 800,000 in this area. We've dropped it down to 250 this year and next. And historically, we reserved that for textbook or device replacements or upgrades. And we're planning on any future capital projects we need to do on buildings. We'd be putting in warrant articles and funding from available resources that the town may have. FY '27, we had a facilities assessment conducted through the school facilities subcommittee, and this was part of their report that they gave us recently, and it kind of gave a simple grade to our buildings in 11 different categories. And as you can expect, the Dewing and the Heathbrook School were the schools that received the most fair and poor ratings. Our schools, as the architects say, since the turn of the century, which we did Orion School, Wynn School Forward, are in fairly good condition.
I just wanted to note, because it's not noted in the key, that the empty red circles mean it doesn't exist.
All right.
There is no fire suppression or fire protection at those
That
two.
they're doing in the Heathbrook School, meaning sprinkler system. We have fire alarms, but not sprinkler systems. And we also did a safety and security audit with the assistance from Homeland Security. It's something that the Department of Homeland Security offers free that we didn't know about until our new assistant superintendent brought that to our attention, and she coordinated that with them. And result of these reports, we're working with our district security team, which is a team of administrators, school members, police, fire, we just get together once every other month, talk about the district security and things that the school needs. And it's great to have the help of those departments and looking at our schools from a different set of eyes and a different perspective. But the phase one, lower no cost impact, we've identified 11 items that we want to complete. Very little cost. A lot of them are just human capital, retraining people, investing in different methods of operation. And we didn't want to do too much detail on this because we're
Not a document we would share necessarily, right, because they have safety and security needs. But some of the phase one, although not, I guess you may consider low costs, are actually embedded in the warrant article as well.
Yeah, we have
For improved security. And then some of them, I mean, really, I have to tip my hat to police and fire, really, they help walk through our schools. I mean, some of these things we recognize on a day-to-day basis. Maybe someone brought in their own little coffee maker, and that can't be in the school. That's a security issue. So you're nodding your head. But those are free, right? Those are process protocols, and we can stay on top of that. But certainly things like door locks and some big areas that really need to be improved in our old buildings, it's a priority, but it's also very costly. And through that facilities assessment, we're prioritizing safety and security, but then when we get to the needs of the schools, they're going to be really high on the list.
So We usually have a capital project list that we keep. We're kind of waiting. We received our initial facility assessment from those contractors and architects that have been through our buildings. But the findings and recommendations are being presented to Selectmen and School Committee in the upcoming weeks. School Committee Wednesday night, they're presenting. So kind of didn't want to get ahead of that group and that process just yet. But when the plan is more thoroughly scrutinized, we'll be developing more projects that we do want to undertake on buildings that we're planning to keep. These are some of the projects we've done in recent years. In 26, 27, planning to, we have a warrant article in place for a mapping upgrade that's going to interact with police and fire, first responders, and help them identify where to go in a building when they show up. It's a protocol, a grid system that will show up on maps that they'll.
Used in the military and it's consistent.
Right. And something that, if we're worried that police, fire, first responders show up to a scene and, they're going to hear, go to the gym door, and they may not know where the gym door is. This system tells them, go to grid G6 and go in that door. And it's something that they're used to using. We feel it'll be a nice investment in creating a safer environment in the event of a critical incident, or even not so critical incident when somebody sprains an ankle in the gym, they need an ambulance. The ambulance drivers are not always going to know where exactly the gym is. So this is going to be able to streamline that process and get people help a lot faster than what we currently have. We're also just sort of discovered one of our assessment tools at our elementary schools that we plan to use was not compatible with the iPads we have in place, that they're too old. So we're going to need to purchase some iPads to be able to use that assessment tool, which is critical for our development in our programming and literacy. And we also just got a quote on our high school projectors in LG1 and the auditorium. Shocked that it was as high as it was. So we're going to see if we can fund that. And it'll be, probably a 12 to 15 year fix for those items. Next section, we'll discuss our grants and revolving accounts. We have 41 separate funds active currently, reduced from 49 last year. As grants and revolving accounts become inactive, we're trying to make them go away in our financial system so there's less to manage overall. All must all have a specific purpose and must be used appropriately. We can't use money from parking fees to buy textbooks for third graders. We have to spend it in an area that's related to the purpose of the fees. We have approximately 34 full-time positions, which are partially or fully funded out of these types of funds. Most of those in this area are in food services, which has a revolving account, and that's completely self-funded. And many part-time, overtime hours are paid via revolving accounts. This is a list of our grant funding and where we are through last week as far as using the funds or encumbering the funds. These grants generally have a 3-year shelf life. We can carry over the money into future years if we don't spend it in the year that it's initially given. So that's why you'll see some of the FY25 grants still have balances, but we'll use those up before the end of this year. FY26 grants, what you'll notice, the blue grants represent entitlement grants that we get every year. They're based on formulas at the federal government level that we're just entitled to and we have to apply for. The red grants represent competitive grants that we have to go seeking the funding for, and we have to meet the qualifications of the given grant. And you notice it becomes, we get quite less of the red grants this year. That was the impact of the MBTA decision with the state. So far, we've been denied, or no, we're going to be denied. Some of these are in process. We've applied for them anyway, just to make sure we have our foot in the door in case anything changes. But it's about $213,000 that we would have likely received in grant funding that we haven't been able to get this year. Do you want to talk about the impacts
Sure.
for some of these programs?
Yeah, I mean, really, some of these programs, it comes down more than money. Because if you threw that $200,000 or $300,000 at us, what it doesn't buy us, and I'll just focus on early college or some of the college and career readiness programs we were trying to partner with local universities for, as we're always trying. I mean, we want to build our program from preschool all the way through high school. We want to keep every family and student with us, or, having the education that they need. What we did was we engaged with the consultant prior to knowing that all of these grants we would not be eligible for. And we were working with the consultant. We're poised to build on our career technical educational programs, CTE, as well as early college, furthering our programming. Though that comes with partnerships with those universities. And then not only partnerships, but our lower income students would have access to the funds it needs to get the credits for those courses, which right now we do offer dual enrollment. We offer some early college courses. We don't have the extent of that full program, certification, associate degree type programs. And that's been a goal of the high school. We've been working on that. But we were quite surprised. We were in the queue. We were ready. We were told we just had to submit the interest, and it was pulled. So we had to put a halt on that work. Not the courses we currently have, but our innovation career pathways, for example. We have in engineering and in life sciences. We're not going to receive the monies for that. Again, that isn't just the money, it's the partnership and the extension of that opportunity for our students. So I could go on a long time about this, and we have probably a 8 to 10-year grant in the pipeline now on behavioral health with the town that we're probably not going to get. That one is 10 years, I forget the millions of dollars that will garner over 10 years. We also have the SAFE grant with the fire and police. We signed off on it. I'm sure we're not, it said right on it, we're not compliant. So I do, thank you for listening to this. It is an impact to not only the dollars and cents, but our goals and, programming for all of our students. So I hope, one, the decision is reversed that allows us to continue to access these funds for our students, or that the state changes their mind. When we originally went to town meeting, as you know, educational grants weren't in that list.
On the table, yeah.
But we've since learned that all compliance with all Mass General laws are required for any of these grants that you saw in the red.
Right.
So,
This slide sort of
But you are
demonstrates.
going to continue to apply
yes, we are.
Oh, yeah.
and maintain a list.
All
Yep.
day long, Mr. Levack said, yes. Because again, what we lose is more than the money. It's those partnerships and connections and programs.
So this slide sort of is what the language we're seeing now in requests for proposals, which is how you apply for these grants. They specifically call out compliance with MBTA Communities Act. This is the language from the Communities Act law. It identifies these areas that we wouldn't be eligible for. Most of them have to do with infrastructure and housing. But then we got advisory from the Attorney General that they must be communities must be compliant with all laws or risk sacrificing that funding. So not great news.
At what point does it become beyond impacting a student, like might lose a teacher, might lose a...
Right. For example, we have credit recovery at the high school. We've accessed our grants to make sure students mid-year, especially in the senior year or junior year, can come to after school and get credit recovery. We've relied on grants to run those programs, to hire the staff, to invite the students in, so they don't risk graduation. I'm giving you one example. We won't have those grant dollars. For a student to graduate, they may have to pay $400. We obviously, for the disengaged student, that's a barrier. And for our lower income families, it's a barrier. So we can't hire staff for those types of things. We were assured, at least, it's not in writing, but we were assured that this would not impact the non-competitive grants, the formula grants, IDEA and the entitlement grants. But, we're holding our breath to make sure. I mean, we would not be able to run our programs without that funding. But I offer you one. You know that we had the 21st Century Learning. We were so proud to offer that at our schools, our early childhood schools. Again, those are all programs that are gone. So they are not only enrichment, they really are the tutoring and the advancing students that struggle. I think when we talk about the required mandates, for example, civics, and the civics assessment, we were functioning off the grant to really build up our staff's capacity, and that's an unfunded mandate as well. So the grants were moving our district along. I don't know, Mr. Libby would have to talk a little bit more about the grant staffing.
So most of our staffing that occurs out of our grants is out of our, the blue area, the grants that we're entitled to, we get every year, and they've told us are not at risk. The ones that we are seeing that we're not getting more involve additional programming and opportunities for kiddos.
Not at risk to date, you don't have that in writing.
No.
Right, we do not.
Correct.
Yeah. And we were holding our breath this summer because we were waiting quite a little bit longer on our entitlement grants, Title I, Title II, 3, and 4. It was late in the summer when we finally knew what our funding would be. We did get a warning that we were at risk of losing funding. We've received that warning again. DESE, we just had a meeting last week with members of the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed, and they suggested we automatically plan for a 10 to 14% reduction in our entitlement grants. And as you know, we hover on that 5% low income or economically disadvantaged, where if we even dip below the 5%, I don't think we will, that cuts it in half. So if it's 10 to 12% less already and then it's cut in half, that's always a little scary for us because we do hire our Title I reading and math interventionists who come in during the school day and work with our students that are not meeting expectations or that fall into that category.
All right. This slide sort of just represents kind of a quick snapshot of all of our revolving accounts that we do manage outside of grants, and sort of where the income comes from and what we typically expend the money on out of these funds. I highlighted the school lunch account, food services, and the circuit breaker account. We have sort of some follow-up slides on those. Also note at the bottom in red, there's an established special education reserve fund that we haven't needed to use yet. It was established in 2016 at town meeting. $725,000 was put in an account The caveats for us to use that is we must use all of our other resources, all of our grant funding available, our circuit breaker funding, any revolving funding we can use to operate before we go to the selectmen and the school committee to ask for access to those funds. We thought we might be close last year, but we were able to get through with some extraordinary relief that we applied for and got from the circuit breaker program. So, but just want to call it to your attention that that exists. So the circuit breaker program is a program that reimburses us. We spend the money in year one, we get reimbursements in year two. Typically, we'd like to spend that in year three, so we have it all accounted for before we start spending it. The costs have been so high recently, and this is not atypical to Tewksbury, but we're spending the money kind of as it comes in now. Something we didn't like to do in the past, but we've kind of been forced to now.
I do want to just talk a little bit about this. We talked about the OSD rate and the 3.04%. That rate does not apply to transportation. There is no governing body that puts a maximum increase on transportation. And Dave has in there 75% reimbursement rate. That's what we're promised, and we saw in last year that they lived by that promise the year before. I think it was 45%.
Yeah.
And just remember that example I shared with you about that 14% jump all of a sudden and that escalating cost. So when we're looking at 75%, for example, of what was maybe $100,000 plus, say, $50,000 in transportation, then a reduced rate but higher cost, and now we're looking at 75% of $200,000 or whatever that may be, or $500,000 for a residential placement, our 25% continues to just grow and grow and grow. So, and I know fellow Merrimack Valley Superintendent sitting behind me, we're meeting with the legislative body, at least for the Merrimack Valley, this Friday, and we continue to advocate for lowering that threshold, which is $54,000 before they even provide reimbursement. So you saw the $20,000 per pupil expense for our in-district students. We have to hit the $54,000 before we even go for reimbursement on that $100,000, $200,000, $500,000 tuition. When we do that, right, as you can see, it just keeps pulling from the LEA funds. And we're going to ask not only to lower the threshold, but increase the reimbursement to 90%. Or all of it if it's a residential placement. We know we're not going to get all that at one bite, right? It's a state. The more need, the less there is. And there is more need. So I just share that with you because we can't keep up with that rate. And the reimbursement, as Dave said, we're spending it as it comes to keep up with, where we used to be able to set for the following year or those unexpected students that move in who deserve what they need. But how do we fund it is the challenge that we're all facing.
Brenda, about how many out-of-district placements are there currently? How many students are out of district?
About 80, between 75 and 80.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So this next slide is our food service, just a quick snapshot again, 5-year history of the cash balance, just general revenues and expenses, and our year-to-date numbers for this group. We do, as we said, it's fully self-funded. We have 20 full-time employees and many part-time folks that work in our food service group. That's all funded through the revenues collected. And beginning in 2026, we started charging at all of our federal programs the cost of their employee benefits. So the health insurance for our food service workers is paid out of the food service account. They're doing great over there in food services. So it's really good to see that more students are taking advantage of the program, and our numbers are up as far as participation goes. this is what our school budget will look like at the end of the day at the town meeting. If all goes according to plan, with a 3.44% increase, 2.2 million in our salaries, operating capital outlay areas. What will be the next steps? We'll continue to do what we do and continue to look at the budget and take input from all parties. And as our needs or resources change, we'll refine our budget from now through the May town meeting. But likely, we'll keep the salaries operating areas as consistent as we can between now and then. Even if we do have minor changes within each category, it could result in some movement between those different groups. But we feel confident that we can run our educational program for the bottom line number that we've agreed to with the town manager. We have more data packaged in a few different ways. Summary by, we have cost centers, which is kind of how we work with our principals and department heads on developing the budget, and our account level detail level, which is also available on our website. And we also packaged the program by DESI function code, which is sort of a nice way to look at the data and in different groups, which is, and then an explanation of what each of these codes mean, like what goes into the school committee expenses, the superintendent office expenses, what types of things we can charge against those different programs. And I believe that brings us to the end. Be happy to hear any questions or comments you have at this time.
Board members? Come on, someone's got to jump in before me.
Did you want to go in a specific,
I'll start with Mr. Christian at the end.
Well, Mr. Liveri answered 3 of my questions already. Have to think of a new one. Come back.
No,
mine,
no basketball. That's the big question.
Talk about generate revenue here.
Okay, I know.
I only had one question that I didn't see in the package, and that was around, what's your strategy around AI in education at this point?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. In fact, we just had a full professional development day on Friday, half a day on Thursday. We have published district-wide AI guidance that we're using, not only through our student handbooks, but training of our teachers. Our strategy around AI is responsibility, obviously safety, but if you remember, our priority goal number 2 is strengthening instructional supports, and I can throw a lot of acronyms at you: Universal Design for Learning, UDL, SEL. How we have our teachers, adults have to bookend AI. They start with something, right, that we own or they've created, and they can finesse it. So for example, let's say it's a 3rd grade literacy lesson, and they put that in and ask for it to adapt the lesson to include the 3 principles of UDL, language objectives for our language learners, whether that's EL students or special ed students, and then they bookend it by checking accuracy and using it. So we, particularly as a school district, want to use it to meet our goals and objectives, not necessarily as I have these 3 ingredients in my fridge, what can I make with them? Not in a I don't want to call it useless, because that's fun, but productive way for teaching and learning. Yeah, and we have certain AI sites that are district approved. So we have a very, very stringent SDI, I always say this acronym wrong, but protocol in using websites that we have vetted that are safe and that they have an agreement. DPA, I think, I forget the acronyms, I'm sorry. But no site can be used without going through that vetting in our district, so.
Okay, and it sounds like, yeah, I would love to be able to read that if I could.
And it is all published.
It's all
Yep,
published,
it was
okay.
praised the other day for being transparent, that there's so much up there that, but sometimes not easy to find, David. I can certainly send that to you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And it's not something that I expect Tewksbury has solved the problem that everyone is
No.
working on right now. Even in where I am at Harvard, they're still struggling with, how do you govern this properly?
Yes.
So that it's not being used to actually do the assignments.
Yes.
But, it's supporting working on the assignment.
We showed a group of middle school students that were in our visioning facility study. We had, I think there were 40 middle school students who were just so actively engaged in what they want in education moving forward. And they put all the data in. And then we asked it to categorize what they put in, and they were mind blown and said, it was your work. Rather than us putting it all on Post-its and, doing that affinity sort of clustering, it did it for us, and we reviewed it again. And that is what, again, we want to use it for, is efficiency, not, to take away thinking and learning. Yeah.
And what I'm not sure that people really know a lot of right now is that these AI tools, large language models, they hallucinate
They sure do.
different
Yeah.
degrees. And
And
when
we,
people are looking at these, they might take it for, wow, this is the answer, but, that's
Yeah.
not necessarily the answer.
which is why humans have to bookend all of it, right?
Exactly, and I'm just not sure how that's also being
Yeah.
addressed.
Well, there is the vetting of facts. We also remind students not to put in their name or particularly, it's like using the internet all over again. Remember when we had to teach everyone how to use that correctly in my teaching career? And now we're walking through what's safe and not safe. Don't put anyone's name in, because then it'll start to
Right.
use that person as, factual. So it is a process for sure. And our teachers are enjoying the usage of it to meet students' needs, but definitely are very, very mindful of how students.
Well, that's great. It sounds like you're well on your way, so thank you.
We're trying. Thank you.
I just got two questions. On slide 23, you show changes in the salary. It shows an increase of 2.2 FTEs with no additional cost. Is that just going to be for this year, or is there going to be?
That was a mistake that I found. Yeah, I'm going to talk about that, actually, sorry. We included some new salaries for students moving into the Center Elementary School that were going to require a new creation of a new special ed program at that school. And my initial spreadsheet, I had the salaries in, but I forgot the FTE. I corrected that.
We do a lot of moving at this time. It is a process, and I really appreciate Mr. Libby, because as we were thinking about, no one ever wants to lose, a position, and I mean that. You try to preserve, and you certainly don't want to reduce that line because it's hard to get positions back. But we really do think through, if we can reduce a fourth grade position, but we need another K, it's going to trickle back up. And when we can scrub longevity from all of the retirees, which is every, $1,000 to $4,000, it really starts to help too. So that was some really good work, which won't impact physicians moving forward.
And then on the slide where you show the facility assessment for the schools, is there any liability or impact for not having any fire suppression at the Dewey or Heathbrook?
No, I think those buildings are grandfathered into code.
Yeah.
They are what they are.
Well, they're not code compliant now.
Right.
If we were to start,
Touching.
we have to. That would be,
We'll have to totally gut and put a whole new suppression.
right.
Yeah.
And again, this is going to be that priority in school facilities and then safety and security. At what point are we saying, well, even if they're online for the next 6 to 10 years, which is reality, right? Even in any process, add, reno, or new build, you're looking at that so many years out. Is it something we need to prioritize anyways?
Thank you.
That's fair, I guess. So I know we're on the edge of our seat with the coming soon, and I know that we're at the end of the pecking order generally
Yes.
of finding out the cost and the ask. But I guess, as we're doing this budget process now, it's become clear that the town could be really struggling in the next 5 years. So I guess my question, without giving away, too much, any spoilers, is there anticipated that there's going to be any major capital asks in the next 5 years based on that report?
What do you consider major?
I mean, I don't want to hold you to a number, but is there?
I mean, you are looking at a 70-year-old Heathbrook that we know is in it, really 60-something-year-old Wynn with an ad reno 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And then the doing, which is clearly failing in multiple ways, right? So there's going to be, I think it's going to have to be the will of the town. Are we looking at repairing the old buildings, which is a substantial figure? Are we looking at a new build, which is another substantial figure? And all the code compliances, those are going to be the options that are presented by the consultant. And they are, I would say, any school building project, ad reno, very costly. So will Tewksbury want, the longest time out of that cost? They certainly won't get cheaper the longer we kick the can. And the unknown is certainly the Heathbrook and doing. What happens if the schools,
I think if we look at our neighbor Lowell, you see
Yeah.
just what it's like to put lipstick on a pig, shall we say.
yeah. The good news is we are running, I mean, and you'll hear this, so I can't, obviously the school committee will get the first of the presentation Wednesday and then the select board, and they're tweaking and I'll give you an example. One of the options presented at from the TSFSC was, well, what if we move all those grade levels up? Center School's brand new, but it wasn't built for kindergarten 1 and 2. It was built with the right size, grade 2 on floor 1, grade 3 on floor 2, grade 4 on floor 3. If the town feels that we're going to move K1 and 2 over there, every floor has to get touched now to be compliant with space and height and, for the changing grade levels. So with every option comes its peccadillos, but I would say with any project in the school, it's also very expensive, and that's the reality.
And nothing's happening quickly.
Yeah.
These processes take,
Yeah.
anywhere from 6 to 10 years generally. So we do have to make those older schools last at least that long. So we'll be Band-Aiding as much as we can to get them through.
And then Jason's reference to Lowell brings me to my second question. I know that Lowell right now is trying to implement more tech support, vocational support because of the lottery system that Greater Lowell has also implemented, and I know Shawshene Tech also has the lottery system now, so I didn't know if there was any movement or thought towards, I'm asking you this knowing that you said grants have been cut, that
Sure.
kind of
We're still working it.
address some of this. Is there any discussion about implementing more of those types of programming into Tewksbury schools?
Yes, but not in competition with, we're never going to offer, obviously, an electrical or a plumbing, and certainly aren't competing with our other great choice of the high school for our students, but we have a nursing program, we have early education, we have biotech, we have engineering. These are the ICP pathways, innovation career pathways, we already have. Criminal justice, so we have those pathways already established. We would only look at expanding on the professional pathways we currently have. I may have missed one or two, but, and that's what our students are asking for.
Then is there any impact, the follow-up question to that is, because we talked about kind of the current grant cuts because of the town's decision with the MBTA communities, is that programming potentially impacted in any way, or is
Yes.
it?
Yes, we were actively working with institutions on the engineering, biotech, education, different, ones, as I said, we've been working on articulation agreements with colleges on our early childhood development program for some time. What we really want to get out of that is licensing and certification for our students, that who want to go on to education that can have that. again, obviously, we're two different high schools. We may have some overlap on some of those programs that we already have established, and the Shaw Tech may be looking to advance on, but definitely that I think every comprehensive high school is looking at that, because what students want out of high school is different today. It's not all a vocational program, but it's career and technical programming is essential.
That's it.
Rod?
Yeah, I just had a few questions. So you mentioned something in the order of 75 to 80 out-of-district placements.
Yep.
Do we know like what our per student cost is on that, or is that?
It's high. I mean, we're roughly, I think you gave basically the collaborative model.
Yeah, I think.
That's the model that we opt for, working with our our Valley
The
Collaborative.
circuit breaker slide, those are
Typical.
pretty typical numbers.
Yeah. Sometimes transportation is higher than the actual cost of the tuition
Sorry.
as well, depending on the program. In a residential program, you're looking at 500,000. You know, again, we have students that move in with that placement already, and
Right.
and that's what we, have to find money for.
We have seen some students changing programs into, I think we had two actually come back to the district from their out-of-district placement this year in September. And so far, going well from what we hear. It just sort of ebbs and flows in cycles. We had a large number of placements happen during the year last year and after the budget season last summer that we weren't really anticipating. A lot of those have, we've had a good number of students graduate, age out, and with our revamped programming that we're doing in district, I think we're seeing more successes.
Yeah, I'll put a
in our
positive spin on that.
districts.
We did pay for, we have our required audits from DESI, and we participate in those, and we have to, and we use those recommendations to improve our programming all the time. We opted in for a voluntary third-party audit of our special ed programming, not only to save money, but how can we do better in our schools to keep kids all the way through. And we've invested more in those programs. Consistent Pathway Services, I don't want to call them a program. It's not a place the kid will go all day long. That's not the ideal. But when we start those services and keep them consistent from early childhood all the way through, and parents can depend on those services, see this child be successful, which came out of our audit. We're investing more at the early childhood level, as well as just moving and shifting our staff who might have particular talents in working with the behavioral needs students with social emotional supports or language-based supports. So the audit helped us a lot, and we'll keep doing that. And I think right previous to the audit, we also had more one-to-one aides, which the audit shared with us. If we can do a better job and not have as many one-to-one aides. But that also was born out of COVID, where a lot of people thought that was the way to move their child into recovery. But we've hence, then I would say practice a little bit differently on how that process goes as well.
Yeah.
I think at a high point last year, we were about 85 to 90 out-of-district students.
Yeah.
And we've seen it sort of coming back down.
Just a little, yeah, okay. And as far as transportation, I think you said that we were going out to bid or something?
Yeah,
Or does that include this fiscal year, or is that for?
No?
that will start June
Yeah.
1st. So it'll be for FY '27.
So it is-
This is our last year in the current 3-year agreement.
Okay.
With our in-district company, we share an out-of-district contract with Billerica and Chelmsford. So we have a lot of students that we could share a van with between those communities. And that contract had a 3-year initial term with options for, at our option for years 4 and 5. It sounds like the worker in Chelmsford initially wants to extend the contract we have. Based on their thinking is, we received this pricing 3 years ago. Pricing's been going up. If we go out to bid, we're probably going to see an increase beyond what is baked into the existing agreement.
So the number we see here for FY '27, should we expect that to change?
It may.
Okay.
I hope I've kind of been staying on top of what we're seeing in other communities, and we've baked in enough of an increase to.
Because
Yeah,
it actually, it looks like it was decreased, right, last year?
The out-of-district piece, that was based on the number of students going down.
Okay.
And you notice too that we transferred in, we had a budget transfer of, I think, about 375,000 into that account this year to help offset the costs that we're seeing during this school year.
Okay.
And we are seeing more small companies crop up in this area. For a while, there was no competition. Everyone was with one company or a branch off of that company. And there's been quite a number of new smaller companies pop up that are giving us some other options for competitive pricing on, the schools that we only send one student to. Might be a school that we've never had a student to. They get placed there. We're not obligated to go with our contracted service if we can find a better price elsewhere. So we put it out. It's almost like a mini bid for any new students we have on the scene where we don't have an existing vehicle. And we're seeing some pretty good savings in that area too.
Great.
And satisfied parents, which is
Yeah,
helpful too.
Yeah. And I think, Brenda, you mentioned the 5% threshold for in need.
Yes.
To reach a certain level of aid.
Yes.
Is that was per school, right?
No, it does represent, yes, not all schools will be Title I eligible. You're correct.
Okay.
It's our, poverty level of students in ages 5 to 17, I believe is the.
We got the center school grandfathered in, which was wonderful because it's our largest school. We see the most need there, but for whatever reason, they weren't doing. Ryan and Wynn were eligible, but not the center. It didn't make sense to us. So there was an opportunity for us to grandfather them in, at least keep the interventions, the interventionists there and the programs that we use.
Okay.
I don't know if that'll be available next year. We're hoping. I know.
And just curious about the one-to-one device. Is that basically the Chromebooks that all the kids have? Okay. And did you say first grade through fourth grade have something, or is it just in the school?
No, so we purchased one-to-ones at fifth grade and again at ninth grade. Well, every student receives at fifth grade and then again at ninth. But at the grades K through, so iPads are used for certain technologies we have to use, like Lexia and some of our special ed program, which are for our literacy interventions. But the one-to-one Chromebooks are also in our classes. They're just not taking them home.
Gotcha. All right, thank you. That's all I have for now. Mr. Chair.
Okay, mine is kind of similar to that last question. You guys were talking about that iPad purchases for that new software that doesn't work on the old ones. What do you guys do with the old ones?
So we put our tech folks keep all that old technology, screens. We replaced all of our routers, wireless access points, and every 18 months or so, we put it out to bid, and someone buys it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So stuff you guys for like computers and just anything that's pretty much not.
It also helps us, what's the word I want to use? Get rid of it, because, you know,
That's what it's
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a,
Dispose of. Yeah.
funding back to the district, but the hardest part is storing it. We have to keep it all someplace. So we had a
Yes.
lot at the North Street, we got it out of there, and it's not just that though, printers, smart boards, whatever we can sell, we will.
Sort of a reverse bid process. And the money goes back to the town.
Nice.
Yeah.
That was my only question.
On the iPads, are there any alternatives to the iPad? Must we buy an iPad?
Well,
Because
we've been switching,
Because they're so expensive.
yeah, we've been switching a lot of the devices to Chromebooks
Yeah.
from iPads. What we've found at the lower levels,
Touch.
they're better at using the iPad. They find better results with the students, and they seem to work better with a lot of the educational software. This one in particular that we bought to be our assessment tool for literacy, it was iPad compatible, but unfortunately our iPads were end of life and haven't been able to get it working properly with the existing devices. We're gonna, we've wrote in some amendments to our grants to see how much we can fund through the grants that we do get, those allocation grants and entitlement grants. So that we're not exactly sure, that has to get approved by the state, pretty quick process, 1 or 2 days. But if we can buy as many as we can with grant funds, we'll do that before we ask for any funding at town meeting.
And to your point, we're phasing out MacBooks, and going solely with Chromebooks, even for our staff.
The only other questions I had that weren't already covered were, one was, Mr. Libby, thank you for the email that you said you found a mistake. That made my day.
Because it went in the right way.
God.
Yeah.
So the questions were, on the health insurance, do we have to go with Blue Cross Blue Shield?
I believe we do, yeah, the town, I don't know if we still have that
PEC.
PEC, the Public Employees Committee.
Yeah.
Is that,
Greek to me.
I don't know.
It would be
I-
probably a
I
town
believe we
manager
do, though. I believe the,
I'll ask John.
yeah,
All the bargaining units were members of the PEC, including fire, police, all departments, as well as every, as I said, bargaining unit within the departments. But that's, I think, a negotiation, at least from my memory, being part of the PEC at one point.
Okay, let's see. Oh, yeah, talked about transportation. And the other question I had was retirements and resignations. How, there's been some already. When do we typically know when they're all done?
we don't. That could happen right up through the end of the school year. And over the summer, we lose staff. Just not necessarily to retirement, but resignations. Some teachers, will change districts, but it'll happen right up until we start school next year.
Yeah, we saw an influx last year with the windfall benefit, right? People, I think, went into the school
Yeah.
year with maybe 3 known retirements and came out of the school year with 20-something. So that was, again, it has its pros and cons. But what are we at now? How many?
Uh,
14? No?
No, 7
Oh.
or 8?
Okay.
Yeah. It was late this year at the start of the year. Not a
MTRS
lot.
wants to know by the end of February, but people don't necessarily follow those guidelines. We have some units with incentives to tell us sooner than later, but
Right.
those incentives don't necessarily drive them.
it's not a lot of money in the incentive program, and the only caveat to getting your retirement paperwork in by February is that they pretty much guarantee that the employee will start getting their first benefit check in July. They could wait until the last day of school and announce, they just may not get their first check until September, so they gotta make sure they can survive.
Okay. And let's see. So that's all the questions I have. Mrs. Regan,
I'm one of them. I am, yes, I'll be retiring at the end of this school year.
That's, I wrote to Rich, I'm like, is this her last budget presentation?
is.
Because I know you had announced it at a school committee meeting.
I did, yes.
I wanted to thank you for your lifetime of education and service
Thank you.
to the
My honor.
school system.
Yep.
And from this point forward, there shall be no, I told the town manager, no more,
Yeah, we can't handle any
we
more.
can't handle any more retirements, resignations.
There's been too much turnover.
Done, too much.
I don't like it.
No. Jason cries
Oh,
easily.
I'm very emotional.
Come find me in June, we'll cry together. Yeah.
To the bank.
Yeah, you cry your river to the beach, right? So, thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd also like to say thank you. All four of my children
yeah.
had,
Let's see,
Mr. Regan.
Ashley, Courtney, Haley, David.
yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
I have, that's the benefit
And
of
not to
being
make
in
you feel
town.
old, but David is now married and has a house in Hudson. Wow, he's my youngest.
talk about a shut out the door before you leave, huh?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wish them well for me.
Yeah.
5-minute recess?
Yeah.
Okay, on to Shawshing Tech. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. My name's Tony McIntosh. I'm the Superintendent Director at Shawshing Valley Technical High School in Billerica. I'm joined by our two school committee members from Tewksbury, Ms. Patricia Muse and Mr. Robert Hutchins. And again, thank you for the opportunity to be here. There are a few handouts going around, which I will kind of touch on as we go through, but again, they're there to kind of help talk through some of the highlights, if you will, of our budget and some of the changes. And I hope that as we go through this, it makes sense and we can connect all the dots so that everybody has the information they need to make an informed decision. We did make an update to the budget book last week. I did hand out copies to people tonight. None of the budget figures or numbers have changed. It's really just the section on projected staff salaries. We were out presenting in one of our other communities, and there was a lot of confusion around the format that we had used in the first book. And again, we wanted to clean that up. We moved back to the same exact format that we've used the last 3 years that I've been here. So again, hopefully that alleviates some of that confusion and some of that cross-referencing that was a little befuddling.
So if I could, before we take a deep dive into this, there's a couple of things I wanted to discuss regarding I guess I call it the overspending or the drawdown or whatever. So in May 2024, Tewksbury voters voted an increase $8,585,726 to Shawshing Tech, which was an increase of $567,199 over 2023. So $500,000 plus. 2024, we also instituted that stabilization fund. Last year, 2025, we voted for $9,088,056, which was an increase of $502,870 from 2024. Despite this, the district overspent the total allocations provided by the 5-member towns. So I'm operating under the assumption that this overspend was covered by drawing from your E&D fund. Is that correct?
Yes, if I understood the question. So it was the FY24 budget that was overspent. And when the audit came out last spring, which would have been April and May of 2025, I believe it was around $210,000, $215,000 that the FY24 budget was overspent. At their June meeting, the committee voted to use the money that had been certified for E&D to balance that so that was not carried forward in any future years.
Okay, so the drawdown was 210?
Yeah, 210. I can find the exact number, I just don't know it off the top of my head.
That'd be great. And what is the current remaining balance in the fund?
So every year it returns to zero until we get it recertified. It's treated the same way as free cash is. So once we hit that July 1st date, our E&D fund is a zero balance until we recertify it with the Department of Revenue. That is still in progress. I did check on it today. Supposedly they are ready to submit the information to the Department of Revenue, and hopefully we get it certified in the next few weeks.
Okay, so of that overspend, do we know what specific proportional share was Tewksbury's? Like
I'd have to look at what percentage of the budget was Tewksbury's for FY24. I can
if you
do
could,
that.
that'd be great.
Yep.
So, accountability. Who is ultimately responsible for the lack of budgetary oversight that led to this? And what internal controls have been implemented to ensure it doesn't happen again?
So I'd say the ultimate responsibility sits with me and the school committee. Again, we had a business manager at the time who has since we've moved on from. And again, I would say it was the function of the business office to monitor and track that spending, which didn't happen. And the outcome or the results of that FY24 audit was, again, part of the reason why we knew we needed to make a change, and we did. And we have an interim business manager who's been on board with us since July. And he's, again, he worked with us to develop this budget, and he worked with us. We had already kind of started the conversation about putting some spending guardrails in place about how budgets were managed. And again, I think we were all educated about some things that had gone on that we wanted to change, and we've put those things in place for this current fiscal year. And we're trying to establish those parameters.
So that's TM Solutions, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we pay them, or you pay them, $14,000 a month, totaling roughly $112,000 to date. Was that contract put out to bid for a Chapter 30B, or was it executed as an emergency hire?
No, it was 30B. Yep.
Great. When will that contract be completed?
So we have them on board through August of 2026, but we can cancel the contract with 30 days' notice. So we are currently in the process of advertising for and hiring a permanent business manager. So as soon as that person is on board, we would give TMS their 30 days' notice, and move forward from there.
So what's the funding source for that contract?
Right now, it is, again, the previous business manager is no longer in our employ, so the money that had been budgeted for that salary is using to pay that. There was a transition period there for a couple of months where we had some money tucked aside for consulting services and other things like that we used to pay for that in the interim.
Okay, so how long, we talk about FY24. Was it happening before then? Do we know?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
What was a similar practice happening before fiscal year 24? You said we identified it in 2024.
So it showed up in the end-of-year audit for FY24, and that was reported to us.
So nothing showed up in the FY23 audit?
So in 23, there was some recommendations around it, but it wasn't flagged as a problem.
Okay. All right, so, and the article that you're submitting to annual town meeting, requesting $405,650 from the taxpayers of Tewksbury. This money was supposed to be available before, correct?
Only part of it. So our original plan last year was to put $750,000 in the stabilization fund that had been established back in, I believe it was 24. And again, once our E&D was certified, it did not come in at the balance that we anticipated. We also had to transfer the money to make up the difference in the overspending for the FY24 audit. So again, at that point, we did not have that money to transfer. I believe it was last July, I sent a notice to all the town managers saying it wouldn't affect any assessments, but we weren't moving forward with transferring the money into the stabilization fund.
Okay. All right, that's all the questions I had gotten that. I don't know if anybody wants to add anything.
We're definitely gonna have questions, but I'd rather hear your presentation first.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Yep. Again, however you'd like to proceed, it's fine.
Thank you.
So again, let me go through this, and like I said, there's a couple of handouts that when we get to that, I think we'll shed some light on this as well. Introductory letter, again, our budget is up 6.09%. There is an explanation around that, around the transportation costs that weren't included in there correctly last year. They were done as a offset outside of the assessed amount instead of being included in the full assessed amount and then being reduced, which I'll talk a little bit more about when we get to that point. So again, it is up that much. We realized that. We knew that was an issue we had to correct. So we really tightened our belt on other requests. So when you back that actually amounts to about a 4.38% increase for our FY27 budget. When you back that out, we're going up about 1.71%. Now, again, that is not the true increase, and it does vary from town to town. But again, we were conscious of that. We tried to be very strategic about what we asked for, and we really reduced a lot of the stuff that we would have typically brought forward. Some key factors here that drive our 27 budget. We have a program that's called SOAR. Some of you may be more familiar with the term BRIGHT. It is a reentry program for students that have had long-term hospitalizations or some type of mental illness. We've had those two positions for the last 2 years as a grant-funded position. This year, in the FY27 budget, we have to pick those two roles up in our own budget. So again, those are FTEs that we'd already accounted for in previous budgets, but now we're asking for the money to pay those two salaries. So we are kind of adding 2 FTEs, but they were 2 FTEs that we had as grant-funded positions in the past. When we were here last year, we still had an outstanding clerical and an outstanding cafeteria contract that hadn't been settled. Both of those have been settled at this point in time. All of those increases are included in this as well. We also did is, we do have some retirees. I believe we're up to 9 or 10 at this point in time. So we tried to offset those salaries as well. Instead of just, putting in the old salary for the person that's retiring and has been there for a period of time, we tried to find a salary range somewhere in the middle of our pay scale and use that as a placeholder. We've also, for the first time in this budget, included all of the stipends that staff members get paid. So that includes longevity, our department chairs get stipends, our athletic director gets a stipend. So when you see some of the staff salaries, and you do a year-over-year comparison between FY26 and 27, there's some that look like there's a significant jump, but that's because we've included everything that person should get paid by the contract that they're covered under. Again, that's not something that had been done in the past. We are trying to be more transparent. We're trying to be more upfront, if you will, about exactly, who's getting paid what and where those things are coming from.
Sorry, can I just ask quick,
Yep.
where was that covered in the past?
So there was a lump sum in there that it existed in like miscellaneous teacher salaries. So again, to be more clear with our sending communities, it makes sense to break that out.
Assuming that lump sum is minus.
Yep.
All those.
Yeah,
things.
yeah. And again, we tried to consolidate a lot of that stuff. Even like you'll see some of our PD things in there. We consolidated a lot of those lines to try to make it easier to follow.
All right, thanks.
Our health insurance costs for next year are going up 10%. We heard Tewksbury Public Schools talking about that. I think everybody out there knows that that's a reality. We do not cost share, and I'm going to be honest, I'm not 100% sure if Tewksbury Public Schools does or not, but we don't have a municipal partner that helps with those costs. We eat 100% of those increases ourselves in our budget. FY27 for us is the first year of a new busing contract, and I'll talk a little bit about that when we talk about transportation. It actually wasn't a huge impact, but it does have some impact on our requests moving forward. So again, we made those cost adjustments. The numbers that are in here are the actual busing contract amounts. It did go out to bid under 30B. We did that back in November, December, so that we had those accurate, hard numbers. We put the budget forward. We weren't guessing at what our transportation costs were going to be for FY27. Table of contents, I don't think I need to get into that. If you're curious about our budget process, we did start back on November 1st. Again, similar to our partners in Tewksbury Public Schools, we start with our directors, our department chairs, our lead teachers. They submit stuff, we go through there, we meet, we review. This moves its way through both our budget and our capital facilities planning subcommittees at the school committee level, and you can see it works its way down. Our committee typically votes on the final budget at their meeting in February, which is usually the last Tuesday of the month. So on February 24th, the Shawshene Tech School Committee voted to move this budget forward to our sending communities. Budget distribution, again, our partners from before talked about we're in the people business. The cost of instruction is obviously a huge amount of our budget. With instruction, we also include materials and supplies, which I know I've been here before and talked about. That is a much different animal for a vocational school than it is a typical public school system, where we're buying copper pipe and we're buying wire and we're buying, bricks and mortar. We're buying welding electrodes. We're buying all of those things that are typically way more expensive than your regular public school district. Fixed cost, again, for us is health insurance, transportation costs, other things along those lines. Capital, we typically combine with our debt service for our capital service, for our capital budget. But again, we broke them out here just so people can see. The $446,100 is the payment on the sports fields. I believe we're probably about 10, I'm gonna say about 10 years into that or so. And I think it was a 15-year note. So we're kind of getting towards the end of that. Capital budget allocation, we are assessing or asking our sending communities for $1,327,379. We did not apply any excess and deficiency to that this year. We don't have that number yet. Perkins, which is the federal grant for vocational education CTE programs, we're anticipating using $126,074 of our Perkins money for next year to pay for capital costs as well. And then we're using about $57,600 out of our revolving accounts. So all in, we're going to spend just over $1.5 million. We're asking our sending communities for just over $1.3 million to fund that. Capital budget process, just to give you a snapshot of the last 3 years. We typically start somewhere between, well, this year was 1.7, but it's usually 1.8, 1.9 million, sometimes up to as much as 2.4 million. Again, we meet with those departments. We have conversations about what can we defer. Is there stuff that we can wait till next year or possibly 2 years out? And then, again, we always try to come in somewhere around that $1.5 million. And then again, we take that $440,000 out for the bond payment. So we're usually right around $1.1 million for capital. And you can see that the numbers that are assessed to the districts along the bottom this year is an increase over last year. But again, we try to fund as much of that stuff with revolving funds or grants as we can. This is a little bit different. In years past, the way that we presented this was kind of we had the assessments by town at the top, and then it was kind of a choose your own adventure at the bottom as to which number you might have to add or subtract. I wanted this to be more clear and more to the point, so we actually kind of flip-flopped this from past budgets. Our total budget that we're looking for FY27 is $44,338,798. Our transportation aid numbers that we got from the Department of Ed and the state, $1,323,733. So we're going to subtract that from the total amount. We're not using excess and deficiency. Our Chapter 70 aid for FY27, is $7,092,348. We're going to use about $520,000 of grants and revolving funds. Again, that's the IDEA, the Title I, the same things that our partners at Tewksbury Public Schools described. So when we back all of those figures out, the total amount that's assessed to our 5 communities is $35,402,717,000. So again, going down to the Tewksbury line item, you can see what the capital contribution is. You can see what the required minimum contribution from the state is. You can see the value assessed as part of our operating agreement. And then you can see the total assessment for FY27. And as we go through some of these next slides, you'll see some more detail about how this is broken out. Current enrollments. Tewksbury has been down the last couple of years. The high point that I found was the 363 in FY25, dropped to 354 for FY26. We're looking at 350 for FY27. And just as a reminder, the FY27 budget is based on school enrollment on October 1st of 2025. So there's always kind of a disconnect between when they count the students and which budget it goes into. So there's always a little bit of a delay there. But you can see, again, we had a dip last year with our enrollment, but we are increasing. We are to the point now, we're going to bring in 330 freshmen for the class of 2030. We've brought in 350 the last 2 years, and what we found is we just don't have the capacity to get the kids in and out of the lunchroom. We don't have enough academic classrooms, so we're kind of bumping up against. So again, we're trying to find that sweet spot where we get as many kids in as we can based on the staffing that we have, but also we can actually service the kids and do the things that we need to do during a school day. Required minimum contributions. Again, this is not set by us. These are numbers that are shared with us by the state. I think all of you are familiar with the cherry sheets and the Chapter 70 numbers and all the things that come out. So again, if we had a 0% increase, we had no increase to our FY26 budget, Tewksbury's contribution would have gone up 2.88% if we did nothing. And again, that's based on the state. And I think you've probably all heard it's based on property values and meal taxes collected and the number of building permits. There's a whole barrage of different things that go into that calculation. Comparison of assessments. And again, this is FY26 to FY27. Again, focusing on Tewksbury. The assessment difference is 472,397 over last year, which is about a 5.2% increase. Like I said, you go back to the other slide. I think it was 2.88% of that was an adjustment on the state's part. So again, you're somewhere in that like 2.5–2.75% increase based on what was shared. Capital and regional operating agreement. Again, we look at Tewksbury's capital, piece of our capital budget, and that's based on every community pays a minimum of 10% according to our regional agreement. So Bedford typically ends up overpaying. They don't usually hit their 10% enrollment cap with us. And then once we back the number of Bedford students out, we equally divide the remaining amount between the number of students enrolled in each community. And again, I know that, and I don't want people, I'm not playing games here. Our budget is up 6.09 when you build in the transportation piece from last year. What we can control this year is the 1.71%. And again, that was based on some strategic decisions that we made. Again, if we want to go down through these different things, capital is up. The operating assessment is up. You can see that the required minimum contributions from our towns is up almost 5%. That's not just Tewksbury, that's across all 5 of them. Chapter 70 aid went up not much, and I think we've had this conversation in past years. Unfortunately, the 5 towns that are served by Shawshene haven't really benefited by the Student Opportunity Act, and we haven't really seen any of those bumps in additional Chapter 70 funding that some of our sister communities have. So I mean, that's always a struggle for us. The regional transportation one jumps out as a big number. There is an explanation behind that, which I will get to in just one second. That was because it wasn't included correctly in the FY26 budget, and the way that it was offset didn't account for the full cost of transportation and only assessed the delta between the reimbursement and the full cost. For your capital budget plan, I know, and I said this, we typically come out with a 5-year one. We have been operating all year with an interim business manager. So we are working on the FY31 projections. Our vocational director is working with his department chairs and his lead teachers on that. But again, we wanted to prioritize getting the budget built and getting all the numbers right and accurate to share with our communities. We will add that in the spring, and that will go back to that format as we move forward. It carries on to the next page. So our FY27 capital budget, we made a concerted effort to provide something or to help in every one of our programs. I will say there's 2 caveats. One is medical assisting and one is metal fab. Metal fabrication has been the beneficiaries of a $1.5 million grant we got from the state to renovate the program. So we made the conscious decision that they could wait a few years before they step back into the conversation. And then medical assisting had gotten something this year and said, you know, we're good, we're all set, we don't need anything for FY27. And again, you can read down through these things. You can see most of these are purchases for our technical program areas, things that the shop areas need, either to continue to deliver the curriculum they have or to expand upon the curriculum that they're currently delivering and offering things that they don't necessarily do at this point in time. Carries on to the next page. And again, I won't go through 28, 29, 30. Those are,
Thank you.
those are for future dates, and we'll talk about that when we get there. On page 21, there are some comparisons between the 26 and 27 budget. I will say that there's a lot of stuff that we intentionally consolidated. We had a lot of professional development lines that were broken out by department or into different groups, and we made an effort to consolidate those. There's one for the school committee line item, there's one for the admin line item, and then there's one for the teaching line item. So you can see some of these percentages are up and down, depending upon, what we did with that and how we shifted stuff around. One of the other ones that's in here is in our continued effort, we are moving towards having all of the paraprofessionals paid out of one line item in the special ed budget. Every time we think we've captured all of them, we start to dig through the budget, and lo and behold, there's one person that may have been assigned to a shop program or may have been assigned to something special. So there are a couple more paras that have been moved from a shop budget, if you will, into that line item for special ed. And again, we will continue to monitor that and make sure that we stay up with that stuff as we move forward. Operating budget details, again, I can go through this department by department. I would prefer to let people ask questions so that I don't have to bore you with all of these things. We did include notes in this. Again, these notes are exactly the same as what was shared with you before. None of that stuff has changed. So if there's questions or there's something in there, we are trying very deliberately to consolidate stuff and to make sure that we capture it in ways that are easy to read, easy to follow, easy to understand. And if I go all the way down to the bottom of this, on page 41. So I just want to, at this point, I just want to hit pause on this book and talk a little bit about the handout that I gave people with the kind of the flow chart bubbles here, okay? So just to explain what happened with the FY26 budget. So in the spring, last spring, we came out, our budget book request was $39,959,681. That was what was approved at town meeting. That was what we're moving forward with. Over the summer, maybe it was early fall, I forget the exact date, the state released their updated Chapter 70 numbers, okay? We ended up getting an additional $96,150. School committee voted to increase our budget by that amount. Notification was sent to all the town managers. Again, we followed the process that the state lays out for that. So our revised FY26 budget was $40,055,831. We did get a question in one of our earlier presentations as to why those two numbers didn't match up. The reason they didn't match up was the increased Chapter 70 funding that we got from the state. If we move to the center column on that page, the total cost in FY26 for transportation for our again, day school students, late buses, all of that stuff, was $1,750,772. In the FY26 budget itself, the communities were only assessed $217,002 of that amount. The anticipated transportation reimbursement, and then we also had a little bit of money in a revolving fund, was offset but not included into the budget total, which it should have been. The school committee, we'd asked some questions about that at the time. We were told that this was an appropriate way to move forward with this. We've since been told by our interim business manager in the firm who have reviewed the regional agreement, all transportation costs need to be assessed to all the sending towns, and then the reimbursement backed out of it. So we didn't follow that process last year. This is how we're correcting it. If we had done it correctly, that third bullet there, it would have increased the FY26 transportation costs by $1,533,770. So if we add that number back to the FY26 total, the FY26 budget, including the transportation costs, if they were appropriated correctly, should have been $41,806,603. Okay, so that's the explanation of what happened and how we got to that starting number. The third column is a little bit of a comparison. Like I said, our transportation bid didn't come in as what we were bracing for some significant increases. Total cost of transportation for us in FY '26 was $1,750,772. The new bid came in for FY '27 at $1,863,000. It went up $112,228. Again, we heard horror stories about, anticipate a 10 or 12 or 15% increase. We didn't see that, so I'm going to take that one as a small win. If you flip over to the back of that same sheet, again, if we had added the transportation to last year's budget like we should have, if it had been offset correctly, that budget would have been $41,806,603. Our FY '27 budget, all in with transportation and all of that stuff included as we're told it should be, is $44,338,798, which means our budget's going to go up, our proposed budget's going to go up $2,749,197. I hope that that's a clearer explanation, and I know that if you're just following the numbers in the book, sometimes it's hard to connect the dots. We are familiar with it because we've been looking at it and reading through it and talking about it for months. And when we send it out to our, our finance committees and our ways and means committees, that information doesn't always translate the way that we expect it to. We continue on in this. These are just projected staff salaries. Like I said earlier, the first version of this was shared as a table by department. We had never done it that way. So our interim business manager and myself worked on all of the department budgets, which were in those first 20 so pages. A partner at the front at the TM Solutions had developed the budget tables. And again, this was brought up in our earlier presentation. There were 6 employees that for whatever reason were in a table that was different than the department budget that their salary was allocated to. We had done the math, we had run all the numbers, all of the numbers were correct. It's just the salary table, I think, was confusing. I didn't care for the format. So the revision that we made last week was to go back to the alpha list. And it just lists the employee and it shows where they are on the pay scale, if there's any, any stipends that they receive, and then what their projected FY '27 salary should be.
There's still an error in one of those.
Which one?
Sean Hines. I'm assuming he's like, it should be 54,407. Because.
Yep, you're absolutely right.
Just like,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, even if you look at this thing 1,000 times, there's always
Yep.
there's always something.
Yep.
And then the other sheet that had been passed around is just a little informational sheet on the feasibility study. I don't know if that is within the purview of the conversation tonight, but I did want to provide this to people. Again, reasons for us to look at this feasibility study. Shawshene Tech was built for 1,000 kids. We currently house about 1,300, and we have a wait list. Year over year, we always have students that we can't accept.
Yeah.
Like I had discussed earlier, getting kids in and out of the lunchroom. We run 5 lunches. We literally start lunch at 10:35 in the morning and end it at 5 minutes past 1 in the afternoon. And we struggle to get every single kid through that lunchroom every day. Our auditorium was built for 140 people. The smallest class that we currently have is 298 students. Even in the gym, with the bleachers pulled out, we can just about seat 1 full class. So there's no place that we can do class assemblies. There's no place that we can really host anything more than 1 grade level at a time. Again, the aging systems, I don't know if it was this group or other groups I've talked to, the switch gear for this school, the main power feed is original to the building from 1970. We were told that the company that made it went out of business, I think, in like 1977 or 1978. So if we have a problem with the incoming power, you're talking, there's going to be millions of dollars of upgrades to be necessary to get that school back online and be able to go back to doing what we do. The cost of upkeep, I know I don't know if it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I was out before all the committees talking about, we spent well over $500,000 to repair a section of the wall above our pool area. The reality is, we're going to keep running into things like that. The rooftop units are coming to the end of life. There's a lot of things that are coming to end of life that if we don't move forward with a building project, whether it's a renovation addition or new building, whatever it might be, we're going to have to find funds for those. So, we're going to be out asking to bond money, whether it's through the MSBA process and pipeline, or whether it's separate from that. The reality is, that the building, again, was built in 1970. Any of you that have been in it, it looks great from the floor to the ceiling, but don't look above the ceiling tiles and don't start digging into the closets, because that's where all the problems kind of lurk, and those are the things that we run into whenever we go to make any type of repairs or upgrades. Again, I know Tewksbury is probably very familiar with this. We are currently in the eligibility period for this, the 270-day eligibility period. We need to secure funding for a feasibility study. We had intended on putting $750,000 in the stabilization last year and using that to offset those costs. We are also looking at getting our E&D certified. So our plan A, if you will, is to use the E&D funding. If we have enough to pay for this, that will be our priority. But we also knew that we may not have an answer on that before we had to get on warrants and get information out to town meetings. So back, I believe it was the end of December, first part of January, I had reached out to all the town managers and said, hey, we need to put a placeholder in just in case, this doesn't get certified or we don't have the money to do it. So down at the bottom there, that I know you had mentioned the $405,650. That's a not to exceed number. We intend to come back and offset that in some way. And again, if we get enough E&D certified, we may be able to come back and say, we're good, we have the funding for this, and then withdraw that warrant article request. But we're pursuing those two parallel tracks, because if we wait till the end, we would have missed our window to get a warrant article on if we needed one. And again, it just talks about what the feasibility study does. We had a meeting with MSBA and some other representatives a few weeks ago. One thing that I didn't realize that they'll come back with is at the end of the feasibility study, they'll actually come back and tell you what it would cost to make your building code compliant. So even if you didn't want to expand, you didn't want to add any more seats, you just wanted to keep the student enrollment where it is, here's a dollar figure for what it would cost you to put fire suppression systems in it, to make sure that it met handicap accessibility requirements, to do all the things that bring it up to current code. Then they also give you if you want to just do a renovation, here's what it would cost. If you want to do a renovation and add on to your current building, here's what it would cost. And then here's something potential if you want, if you want to look at starting new and just go from the ground up. So it is a big chunk of money. It is a big investment on the part of the district and our sending communities. We do think it's worth it. Again, if we get into the MSBA, if we get moved forward with the MSBA pipeline, that obviously opens up dollars and funding that will be available to all of our sending communities. Will help offset the costs of any type of building project as we go forward. And I think that's it. Unless, Ms. Muse, is there anything you want?
No, no, I just wanted to say, when you were talking about, we are responsible as school committee for the budget. I will tell you, I am called the bully. And they put me on after we realized we had some issues. So last April, they said to me, Patty, you want to be the chair this year? Because I was not going to be the chair. I hadn't been in the chair for a few years. And as soon as they put me as chair, I was considered the bully of the chair, because I didn't take any more of this crap. I'm looking at budgets going, there's something wrong here, there's something, because I did budgets at the Tewksbury Public Schools. So, and I will take the blame that I didn't notice it right off the bat. I was giving people a chance, because we had a new superintendent, we had a new business manager. We were there giving everybody a chance to get their foot in the water and go with it and do a great job, and then things started to fall apart. And we are here where we are. We think we've done a pretty good job of getting us back on track after a couple of years. And And hopefully with a brand-new business manager, he won't have to do as much work as he's been doing.
No comment.
So, if I may, Mr. Chair, I apologize in advance if you feel like I'm kind of picking up the bat that you were hit in Wilmington. But my first question, I guess, is to Ms. Muse, since you referenced it, when did you notice there was a problem? Because you said the last couple of years, so when did the school committee acknowledge that there was a problem happening with the way that the budget was being managed?
Probably, well, you can see, I was in the minority for the vote on what was going on in the business office. So I kind of took a backseat, and I will tell you that. I took a backseat for a year and a half trying to figure out, okay, give these people a chance. And probably, we really noticed some issues, I would say probably in 2020, what is this, 26? So 24, late 24 maybe? And then definitely it just went.
Yeah. So we didn't get our FY '23 audit till December of 2024.
Yeah.
So that
Fair
was,
to say that's when the concern, the flag
there
started?
was some questions that came out of that. And then, again, I started asking some questions into the spring of '25.
Yeah.
And I think when we got, I mean, personally, when we got the FY '24 audit report, there was some big question marks there for me,
Yeah.
which then led us into, you know, again, we were trying to get E&D certified. And as we went through that process, that also led to some question marks about what had happened with that and why the numbers didn't come back where we thought they were. So I would say, I would say probably about a year ago, I started to ask some questions and tried to figure some of this stuff out. And again, it took some time to dig into this because, again, I didn't have access to all the information that I needed, and it took a little while for us to get that.
Okay, because that's, I think my concern, speaking just as a president before even just a finance committee member, is you're asking us to kind of on blind faith approve over a $9.5 million budget component assessment, as well as potentially another $400,000 just to get a feasibility study for what we can all, no matter what they come back with, we know it's gonna be a multi-million-dollar bill that we're not gonna manage. And I can say personally, I'm not confident right now in the management of that, given the last 5 years. I mean, hasn't there been 4 business managers in the last 5 years? Is that
No.
not accurate information?
No, that's.
The interim is the third one. When we hire another permanent, it'll be the fourth.
No, we had the same business manager for over 20-something years.
So what are the guardrails in place to make sure that it's gonna be done right going forward?
So again, we brought in TMS Solutions, which is also a consulting company. So not only have they been providing the interim business manager services, they've been going through process and procedure, making and implementing recommendations since last July. So again, I'm going to say we're in a different place than we were.
Okay.
And again, whether they're with us through July or August, whether that ends up being early if we can hire somebody, they have provided a lot of direction and stability, and have really, in my opinion, have really kind of got us back on track.
Okay, because I think one of my other concerns is just looking at kind of the budgeting process. That, my assumption is that's the process every year, right? So every year, the school committee reviews the draft budget at least 3 times before it goes anywhere else. So that means in previous years, the budget's been reviewed at least 3 times. And then there's these oopsies of over $1 million of costs that just weren't included.
The cost was included, it just wasn't added to the total assessment. So it was done as an offset instead of being.
Right, that's not really reassuring that, so the money was spent, there's the towns didn't know that they were gonna be
Right, it should have been added to the total
included
budget.
in that. So
Yep.
I mean, that's actually more concerning that it, wasn't part of the assessment, but it was still being spent, because that's when we get to the overages and the EOD, and last year wasn't it certified at 800,000? that not correct?
Somewhere in that range,
So,
yeah.
again, we're looking at a $1.5 million feasibility study that is gonna be offset potentially by funds when they're certified, but we know, we can be pretty confident those funds aren't gonna cover the entire cost. So there's gonna be an ask to the town. no
The
matter
2
what.
years before that, we actually returned money to the towns because we went over the 5%. So again, I'm not gonna make a prediction because
Yeah.
I'm not a palm reader or
Right.
anything like that, but, so for 24 and 25, 23 and 24, whatever, 23 and 24, we actually returned money because we had more certified in E&D than we were allowed to keep under the law. And then in 2024, it came in at the $800,000.
Right, and that was after the 215,
That was before that.
so that was 800, then minus
Minus
the
that.
215, that was
Yep.
the overspend amount.
Yep.
So are we aware of any overspend amounts this year that we have to be concerned about?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Again, we're still working through the E&D process. So, I mean, once that's done, we'll have a very clear picture as to where we stand.
And then the last thing that was raised in the Wilmington one that I wanted to just follow up, because I didn't really get a clear answer. Mr. Fiore was going on about with his, a lot of experience, obviously, with Shawshene Tech, and he was commenting on kind of the salaries. So do you have, because you gave us all these salaries by teacher, which is great, and I know you explained that the reason some of them might have gone up was because of their different stipends, but there's nothing in here saying what it had been previously. So it's difficult to assess kind of what that really looks like.
Right, but-
Because we don't have all the information.
They also wouldn't have been accurate because we never did the stipends before, so.
Well, you did them, they were just in one bucket.
Right, yeah, excuse me, they weren't broken out by individual.
Okay, so is there a way to show us kind of, this was the bucket, and this is what, so that we can kind of get a comparison, as that these aren't significant increases in reality?
Yep.
I think that would be helpful,
Yep.
just to know. And
Okay.
I mean, I'm still gonna just say, I'm concerned, and I'm a little bit even more concerned, Ms. Muse, to hear that, like, you were taking a back seat.
Well, I would, because, well,
The expectation is every member of the school committee is sitting
right, and I
as close to the front as they can.
I couldn't, well, we have a budget committee, a subcommittee. So it took me 2 years to get back onto that, because we have all new members, and once I did, I was no longer taken aback. I mean, I would question everything that was done, and then when but the other, I would say the other 9 members, they were questioning it a little bit as it went on, but then when certain things happened, everybody realized it, so. I'm only one member, and I can say what I think, and I can ask for things, and I don't get things. And that's pretty much what I did for the last 3 years. I'd say I want, well, you said something like, give me even dates, because I always had 26, I would always have it 1 year compared to the other.
Right.
And I wasn't getting that.
Yep.
And he said, okay, where's the other year? Oh, I'll get that.
Right, well, and that's kind of what's, I
That's,
appreciate,
and
I
it wasn't
appreciate
happening.
that you addressed a lot of
Right.
the concerns that were raised, but what's glaring to me is that we still don't kind of have those comparisons that would be helpful
Yep.
Right.
for us. We don't, it's okay to explain to us, well, because it was all in one bucket and now it's not in that bucket. But when we don't see
Yep.
those buckets, and I think Rich even asked kind of for us internally if we had previous year's budgets from Shawshene Tech to just kind of on our own try to cobble it together. And quite frankly, that's not what we're supposed to
No,
be doing,
and
right? So-
again, we've had a similar experience
Right.
of trying to, again, I don't want to say piecemeal, but unravel
Yeah.
how things were done. Because again, now that we've gotten into it, the way that I thought things were being done and should have been done wasn't happening. So we're trying to correct that. And
No, I understand that the feasibility study has to be all or nothing. Every town has to be on board or it's not going forward.
Right.
unless we're able to pay for it out of if we can pay for it out of E&D, that's a different conversation.
Okay.
But otherwise, every town has to pass the warrant article.
If for some reason it doesn't pass this year, is there anything prohibiting you from applying again in the future?
No. but we would have to start over from scratch. So MSBA gets anywhere from, 70 to 90 applications per year, and they usually pick somewhere between 15 and 20 of them to fund.
Okay.
So, but yes, there's nothing that would prohibit us from going back into the process.
And I think we applied 3 times.
Yeah, 3 or 4.
3 or
before
4
we got
times
in.
we
Yep.
applied before we actually got on the list, so.
Yep.
And yeah, I will apologize. I do blame myself. I mean, when something happened one meeting, I was like, okay, this is crazy.
Yes. All right, thank you. I think I'm done for the moment.
To the left. Go to the left. Evan,
No questions right now.
Dave?
Just one question, one comment. The aging systems, cost of upkeep, yeah, those are hairy problems with old facilities. I do have a question about the overcrowding. So why admit 1,300 students when you're only really built for 1,000?
We can't meet the demand admitting 1,300, and we already have 200-plus kids on our wait list every year. If we reduce that down, you're just going to increase the number of families that don't have access to the school. So I could tell you, we've renovated every broom closet and accessory area and turned it into, classroom spaces, offices, everything else. So again, we've really tried to maximize the space.
I get it's difficult to tell someone that you don't have space for them, but for the people that are going there, you want the best possible experience. And if that experience is poor,
Yeah.
because you're admitting more than you can handle,
I think we
It
found
seems
that,
to be
I
a
think we found that
solution there.
balance.
have.
Again, I will speak specifically to the shop program areas. Those are set up to accommodate the number of kids that we currently have enrolled. And again, that's why we're also very closely monitoring how many kids we're bringing in. I mean, we're not just going to go 350, because we couldn't do that. So again, we have those conversations, the leadership team talks about it. We make those decisions about, what is next year's freshman class going to look like. Next year, we might only bring in 310 or 300, depending upon how that shakes out.
Okay, so you are addressing that. And it goes to, I guess, one word that I'll also use for the feasibility study, sustainability. So as you're looking at a new facility, sustainability, not just from the facility itself, but from the population. So I've been in Tewksbury over 30 years, and over the last 20 years on committees like this, I've been watching the population, and we're not going up. We're on this little blip where it's a downward trend.
Yeah.
And we're getting older as a community. As I mentioned earlier, I've got 4 kids. All of them have fled Tewksbury because it's unaffordable for them. 2 of them have left the state, New Hampshire and Florida, and 2 have moved to more affordable areas. I think that's a trend we're going to continue to see in this town because it is very expensive. It's a trend in the state. I mean, we see people fleeing it.
Yep.
I know in 2 years when I retire, I'm going to Florida. So when I say sustainability, it's like not just maintaining the facilities, but being able to
pay for the
make it
facilities.
affordable for
Yep.
people to be able to go. And not just for the individuals, but for the communities that are shrinking and their tax dollars are getting more precious.
Yeah. I know this.
That should be in the feasibility studies.
There's also some conversations at the state level about again, upping the reimbursement rate per square foot for vocational schools. I mean, there is a lot of that going on. Whether that goes anywhere or where it lands, it's another conversation. And again, our partners from Tewksbury Public Schools talked about, the state is the one that kind of has this coffer of money from, the fair share amendment and, and the increase in tax contributions and all these other things. So I know, I'm very active with a group called the Mass Association of Vocational Administrators, MAVA. MAVA's been advocating for this. I know there's some legislation that's been filed on behalf of them. I'm hopeful that translates into support. I mean, I wasn't alive when it happened, but back in the 60s and 70s, when the regional vocational schools were first established, the state threw a lot of money at them because they thought it was a good idea and it was going to help build the economy and they were going to prepare people for these jobs. It's kind of time for them to come back around again and pony up some funding for that again.
Because I'd hate to see a facility get built and then you only have about 600 students left to go to a,
Yeah.
like a 2,000
Yeah.
student facility.
Well, we would, that's not, what we've been through, again, as part of our preliminary process here, we had to submit a bunch of information to MSBA. MSBA is looking at the projected enrollment, all 5 communities. We're still waiting for the enrollment letter. They keep telling me you'll have it any day now, but that's MSBA. But they come back and they give you a range. They say, you know, we've looked at all 5 of your sending communities. This is where we see the trends. You know, if MSBA is going to be involved in this project, the building can be from this number of students to this number of students. And then again, we have to have those conversations once this feasibility study is done. You know, a building for 1,250 kids is different than a building for 1,500 kids.
Right.
Not only in costs, but then operating budgets. And, you know, as we come back out to towns, you know, if we have another 500, 250 to 500 kids, that translates into more money that we have to ask our sending communities to support us every year. So those are all conversations that we're aware of and we've been cognizant of, but we can't take the next step without doing the feasibility study and getting more data, more feedback from them about this is what this looks like and this is what the costs are.
Thank you. I'll get off my soapbox, but I'll end it on a more positive note. I think what you do is fantastic. It's so value added. I just don't want it to seem so expensive that it's sending, you know, people out. I'll pass it along.
Not a smart person, but you just told me to retire in 2 years. I don't think that's going to happen. Speaking for the people that's talking crayon, such as myself, you lost $1 million. What do you have to show for it in writing? Like, what did we purchase? What did you guys get?
Can you expand on what you mean by?
So we have $930,000 that was misappropriated or spent on certain things that you found out from the 2024, from the 23 audit and then into the 24 audit. We know that we misplaced funds or misappropriated funds or spent those funds. Have you identified that in a sheet X to actually what line items, where it was spent, where it went, where it was misappropriated? Do you have that?
That's public, that you can get that on, and I can send you guys the
Yeah.
link, you can look it up. So when E&D gets certified, the Department of Revenue has a public-facing page.
Okay.
You go and you select the district that you want to read about, and it shows you, this is the undesignated, unreserved, I believe is the term, balance.
Okay.
And then it shows you what they walked out of it and what, you know, what, and there's a descriptor, you know, it's
Now,
boys.
because you're full-time and I'm part-time, I'll ask you if you could send that to us, that'd be
Yep,
great. 'Cause
absolutely.
I won't be looking
Yep.
for it after this. I'll
Yep.
put my kids to bed.
Yeah, yes, I understand.
Can I ask, why did you say $1 million?
Well, I just rounded up.
Yeah.
I just rounded up.
So does that include last year's? Is that what you're talking about?
No, I just get a
Yeah, it's
rounded
just- yeah,
number
you just-
to make it easier than the 940
Whatever it is.
or whatever it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
Sorry, I should have rounded down. I rounded up.
No, I can send you the link that.
Thank you.
Again, it'll be a drop down, but I can send you the link to the website and all you do is just hit the drop down and it'll take you to that page.
Outstanding, thank you.
Yep.
What's that, questions?
You kind of answered my question on the E&D. Do you have any idea when that will be certified? You don't know?
Hopefully soon.
Soon?
We started in, I believe, November. But again, this is one of those things that we've been unraveling, untangling, and as we go through, we're making sure that everything we do is now right, so that when we move forward, we don't have these impediments to trying to get this certified in the future.
Okay, so really no idea, but hopefully soon. Is that the?
Well, everything was sent to the
If-
state, right?
There were. It is hurry up and wait. So the report that I got today was that all of the backup, the supporting documentation is done. Our interim business manager is not the one that's actually doing the submission. It's his boss. So we are waiting on his boss to upload all the stuff and submit it through the portal. That could have happened. When I came, I hadn't seen an update on it. It could happen today, could happen tomorrow, could happen a week from now, could happen the first week in April.
All right. And my other question is on the, was it the stabilization fund or something we approved, I don't know how long ago?
2
Yeah,
years
2
ago?
years ago. Yep.
Is there anything in that or? what?
No,
Nothing.
no. So last year would have been our inaugural deposit into it. But again, based on, and I'll send the information, you can see right in E&D where they walk out, like, this is, we're deducting this, and this. But it got us below our targeted number, so the committee made the decision that we had a meeting, so it was like June 26th to June 27th, that was right before the end of the fiscal year, and the committee made the decision not to make the transfer into the stabilization fund.
That's all the questions I have, thanks.
I just have a few more. Do you know what the cost per student is?
Total or for, so for FY '27?
Oh, I'm sure you don't know for FY FY 20,
Oh, but you do know.
Well, we can, yeah, I mean, if we take, I mean, I can tell you, Tewksbury specific,
It's like $27,317 per student.
yeah. If you take the total assessment for Tewksbury and you divide it by the number of students that we captured on October
Okay, so-
1st,
Yeah.
it'll give you that number. Yep.
so 27,
I can,
27,317. That's
okay,
what I got.
thank you.
But I have a
sounds about right, yeah.
Can I just piggyback off your
Yes.
question real quick? The number of students that are allotted for Tewksbury are going to be based off the 2024 number. And the 2024 number was 363.
The October 1st number?
The October 1st number was,
It'd be 2025's October 1st number.
that's what's based off of this one.
That's what the 27 budget is based
Okay.
off, yep.
So, I gotta go back to
That's
the
the
next slide.
350.
The 350, but it would have been based on the 363, right? Because we're going off of 2 years prior for the
No,
total assessment.
so the FY 27 budget is based off 350 students. So if you look at page 9,
Yeah. But the minimum contributions that the state says that we're supposed to go off of is the actual number of the 2025 total student number. So the 27.
the October
numbers are
1st,
25.
the October 1st 25 number, yes.
So we were at 363,
No.
25.
No, so the FY '25 number would have been based on October 1st of 2024. 2023.
Okay.
The 26 number would have been based on October 1st of 2024. The FY '27 number is based on October 1st of 2025. There's a weird gap between when they count the student and which fiscal year it shows up in. So if you look, the 350 was the number of Tewksbury students attending Shawshene on October 1st of 2025, so last October 1st.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. That is super confusing, the way that they do it, yeah.
I thought I had it before, and then
Yeah.
when you had that, it
No.
threw me off. Hold on.
It's- yeah.
Roger, I'm tracking.
So when I went through this stuff, it looked like the admin office budget increased by 13.6%.
Yeah, and again, we consolidated a lot of the PD money, so it had been broken out in different departments. Everybody had a little chunk of it, so we brought it all into that budget line item. When you go back to, oh, wait a minute, sorry, wrong direction. I hope I'm not making anybody at home seasick. If you look at just under where it says total school committee 001, district professional development went from $10,000 to $40,000. Consolidation of all district and administrative PD into one account. We also, one of the other big increases in the admin office was consultants. We, again, moved to a lottery this year. It was the first year for us. We weren't sure what we were going to need for consultants moving into that year, so there's some money here around potentially supporting us around the MSBA project. And then we also increased our contracted services line in special ed as well, because, again, not knowing what we would have to pay for and trying to make sure that we were prepared if we had a big shift in demographics and students. You can see those are two big drivers. Just those first two lines there are pretty significant.
Yep. the town assessment calculation. The table lists the percentage increase
Wrong way again, sorry.
for Tewksbury. I think it's
Yep.
7.08. If you add,
This. Which one are you referring to? Is it the next one? Is it this one? The
town
comparison?
assessment was on page 11.
Page 11?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So I might have been working off the old one. This average, if you, this is a weighted average.
This is an assessment average. So again, you have to remember that the required minimum contributions go up or down based on what the state sets. So while our overall budget increase is a 6.9% increase, the assessment increase is a 7.08. Because again, the state's saying the sending communities have X capacity to pay for the school, so those numbers don't always match up in parallel.
Okay. Let's see. On the good news front, I just saw that you got a philanthropic grant for the electrical shop.
Yep.
What does that free up for, space for?
That will allow us to expand the project areas. So again, we fit all the kids in, we make it work. Because of that donation, our plan is to build a freestanding expansion of that program, kind of located outside and adjacent to it, which will then allow us in the current space within the building to renovate that and to create bigger workstations, more workstations, and then have that building be dedicated towards some technologies isn't the right word for it, but I'm at a loss where, you know, they're going to have microgrids, they're going to have solar panels, they're going to have the battery backup systems, they're going to build that thing out as kind of a modern, forward-looking facility to train kids in all of those technologies.
That's fantastic. So that's my last question, but I will echo my original thoughts that I just don't have a lot of confidence. And it feels a little bit like this isn't apples and apples. It's apples and oranges. And I don't know how you address that in a way that can make taxpayers of the town who are already feeling pinched feel confident about it. So
I think personally, I think you need some year-over-year stability in how this stuff is presented, and we've been in a place, and again, doesn't make me super comfortable either, but we are identifying issues and trying to correct them, because again, we don't want to just perpetuate what's always happened, but sometimes that does make it tricky to make that comparison, because it's like, yeah, we didn't figure that the same way, we didn't budget that the same way that we did, because we realized that we had this correction, and I don't know exactly what word I want to plug in there, but, and again, that's not a great thing. I would love to come out a year after year and have the same presentation and have the same format and have all of those things. It's just that is not, that hasn't been in the cards for us to this point.
okay.
Yeah, and I just want to say, you know, my son went to the tech, and he's a freshman at RIT. He was in the ISSN shop, and the tech was the best thing that could have happened to him. I have friends whose kids are like dying because they're on the wait list, and they're hoping that they get in.
Somebody moves up. Yeah.
Right, so part of me, I understand like the frustration of, by kind of suggesting that maybe this year is not the right year to be doing this feasibility study and moving this project along means that we're depriving a student in, 5 years, 6 years from having a newer, better facility to be learning in. But I agree, like, I think my ultimate concern is we don't have that year-over-year stability just yet. What we have is kind of a recent pattern of instability that is so concerning that it feels like, you know, we're potentially just throwing good money after bad and trying to fix it. And I'm hopeful that if you get, you know, a business manager that's going to offer that stability, I'm hoping that the school committee is gonna support you in making sure that you're getting the right person who's going to be around for longer than, you know, 6 months or a year. That this conversation will happen again. I'm just really concerned that the timing of this is such that we're gonna put $1.5 million into a plan that we can't support yet, because it would be just an astronomical amount of money to kind of throw into the hopes and dreams category right now, right? So that's where I'm coming from, and I know, you know, I know you're inheriting this, and I know most of this largely wasn't your responsibility, which is why I think it was a little bit hard on Ms. Muse, because I know she's been on the school committee for so long. But that's the reality is, you know, our expectation sitting up here is that when it gets to us, we're just looking at it and you know, it's put
Asking questions,
together.
yep.
And instead it feels like, you know, we're doing a lot of the work that should have been done long before it got to us. And I think, you know, once we get back to a place where that's not the case, I think that there's a better chance of the community being supportive of
Right.
this, you know, because we're just up here representing them.
Yeah, and I mean, just to, I mean, if this moves forward and we get into this feasibility, you're talking probably 24 to 30 months.
Yeah.
For that feasibility study to take place. So again, we're going to have a few more cycles of this. And again, my plan, I think all of our plans is to bring that consistency, the stability to it, but we can start over. But now, I mean, we have the opportunity now, and again, I get it. I mean, when we were looking at this, I'm like, oh boy, these are gonna be some tough conversations, and they have been, and I'm sure they will continue to be, so.
What I would say, because I have been on the committee over 30 years, and for the first 27, our budget presentations were stellar, you know, and it wasn't until we had a whole change in, you know, and superintendent and business manager and stuff, then you see that things happened, you know, and yeah, we were trying to give this a chance, you know, we were trying to give a couple years, you know, and then whatever happened, and I apologize that I'm not sure what I could have done more, or maybe I do, maybe I could have been louder and saying, hey, you know, but it's a big committee, it's 10 people. And, you know, and I started one strike against me right off the bat, so anything I said, you know, was taken with a little, you know, like, well, Patty's got an issue, but I didn't have an issue. You know, I admit, I gave the person a chance, but we waited too long. I think we waited too long, but I would hope that you would look back at the first 27 years and realize, you know, the school has been great, you know, and still, even with whatever happened here, you know, I mean, we didn't really lose money. It was maybe creative finance, I don't know what you would call it, whatever happened. And, you know, I would hope that's what you would look at and realize that, you know, we're fixing it now, it's going to be fixed. We have all the committee on board now, which we wouldn't have had 2 years ago. We have all the committee on board now. And, you know, so this will work. I mean, we're gonna get, you know, we have, how many people applied for the business manager? We got
10 or 11.
people. So, you know, I'm sure, I mean, in the last round, when we looked, I think we had 2 or 3.
And that was right when I was starting. I
Right.
wasn't part of, well,
So,
was
you
kind
know,
of part.
hopefully,
Not fully.
you know, and no longer will we wait longer than a year to, you know, but anyway. And I do apologize. I know this is horrendous. I mean, I'm named in a lawsuit. I mean, we got people calling you know, coming to our meetings, calling me a bully, calling me names on the internet. But, you know, but I'll take it because we should have nipped this in the bud much sooner than we did.
Well, we've got parents whose children have gone there. I went to Shawshing Park. And this kills me. This, I mean, I know where that 140 seat auditorium is.
Right.
You
Been in there.
tell you exactly where it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, but this, it's absolutely, this was difficult for me to pour over. So that's all I'll say. But thank you for coming in. I appreciate you taking
Thank you for having me.
time.
Yep.
And can you get us that information?
Yes.
Yesterday?
Well, not yesterday.
Well,
Do you,
when it comes out.
some of it I can get you really quick. Some of it may take me a couple of days. Do you want that sent to the whole committee? Do you want me
Yes.
to funnel it to the town
Yes.
manager, to the whole committee?
Yes.
Yeah.
You can copy it, and if you copy the town manager and the assistant town manager.
Yeah. That became a question mark and other things as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Hold on, we can't go yet.
We get
He's
stuff-
still got stuff to do.
I was just thinking at the time.
No, I was talking to Jason.
The one from March 2nd. Didn't I see one from March 2nd?
The minutes,
Yeah.
We got a lot of stuff.
yeah. We still have the agenda, geez, and
We've been in session until he says so
I
moved.
was ready to go. I packed everything up.
I did too.
I'm back. I'm ready.
I didn't read the rest of the email.
She actually retired 2 years ago.
So we have a ratification of a recording secretary's timesheet in the amount of
$946,000. And 34 cents. I rounded up, just straight mill.
To the next million.
I think it was 198 something. I thought I had it.
No, you have it. Oh, yeah, no, I have it. 198.99.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Sorry, geez,
All in
Just wanted to
favor?
know that Hannah.
And I'm gonna go not voting on that. Okay. Then we have approval of March 2nd, 2026 meeting minutes.
Motion to approve.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous vote. So, I will look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.